Texas Math Mundo audience, are we in store for a treat today? In the house is Dr. Dan Garcia. He is a teaching professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at the University of California at Berkeley. He is an innovator in the field of computer science education, especially helping broaden the participation of underrepresented groups in computer science. That right ahead. Let me take a quick moment and ask that if you enjoy this content, that you please hit the subscription button and the notification bell, that you leave a comment below, and you smash that like button. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Please help me spread this joy and beauty to as many people as possible. Dr. Dan Garcia, Electrical Engineering, Computer Science Department at UC Berkeley, right ahead. My name is Saul Kamtu, and this is Texas Math Mundo. Texas Math Mundo audience, are we in store for a treat today? In the house is Dr. Dan Garcia. He is a teaching professor in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department at UC Berkeley. Selected as an ACM Distinguished Educator in 2012 and an ACM Distinguished Speaker in 2019, he has won many teaching awards. He is a national leader in the CS, Computer Science for All movement, bringing engaging computer science to students normally underrepresented in the field. The Beauty and Joy of Computing, a non-majors course he co-developed, has been shared with over 1,000 high school teachers. He and his course have received national exposure in the New York Times, PBS NewsHour, NPR's All Things Considered, and USA Today. He is a vocal evangelist for the A's for All, as time and interests allow, initiative that gives students the time they need to achieve proficiency through soft deadlines, multiple chance exams, and pre-approved incomplete grades. And this is just a small tidbit of the many honors and awards and accolades that he's earned. It is my great privilege to welcome Dr. Dan Garcia, Professor Dan Garcia in the house. Welcome.
Nice to meet you. I'm so happy to be here. This is a great opportunity. Really, really thankful for this opportunity.
Oh, I appreciate it. You know, when I read your biography, I was like, wow, what an amazing individual here. And I look forward to hearing your perspective, especially from my audience.
Sure.
Let's start off by saying, how are you doing? What's keeping you busy nowadays? How are you having fun?
Sure. Well, let's see. So I teach. Berkeley is wonderful, and it's a semester system. So I'm very busy during the fall and spring, and the summer is a time to do a little bit of research, catch up with mail, do a little travel with family. So this is a little bit more a downtime. I also, by the way, I'm in charge of all the summer courses. I'm co-in charge. I have 3 other faculty that we're coordinating all the summer courses. These are 8-week kind of compressed summer courses. So I'm making sure those are running okay. I have a little bit of a research group on the side. I'm still working my A's for All. A lot of paper deadlines are in the summer. So you kind of have the time to read and write and think about scholarship. So it's been a good time. It's been thankfully I didn't get COVID this summer. Other summers, we all had to deal with that. But I had a little bit of travel, had some time with family, got to see my mom in New York. So I've been really kind of taking it easy, getting good sleep, and then we're getting ramped up for the fall because I have three big courses in the fall and a lot of travel. So I'm trying to get ready, to be honest. It's like prepping a house for the family to come by on Thanksgiving evening, the evening before Thanksgiving.
I'm lucky to catch you when I did. I'm lucky to catch you.
Yes.
Hey, awesome, awesome. Sounds like a very filling, very, very busy life you live. So we're going to delve deep into the impact you've had on computer science education and especially on exposing it more to underrepresented groups. But before we do that, I want to know more about you. Where are you from, born and raised, and what is your cultural heritage?
Sure. Well, I was born in the Bronx, or as we say from where I'm from, I'm from the Bronx. You got a problem with that? Because there's a bit of a chip on the shoulder there. So it's one of the 5 boroughs of New York City, if you haven't heard that. And J-Lo, by the way, was born not that many years away from me and not that many blocks away from me. So it's actually kind of cool to connect with that. Colin Powell, the former chief of staff, was also from the Bronx. So I grew up there. My parents got divorced. My dad is Puerto Rican, Afro-Latino Puerto Rican. So he was born in New York also. So I'm kind of second generation New York, but his parents were both born in Puerto Rico, from Ceiba and Fajardo in Puerto Rico. And then they moved to New York, kind of like when a lot of immigration came from Puerto Rico to New York City. So he was born in the early 40s and 50s when he was growing up, and they came in the 30s. My grandmother, when she came on the boat, you didn't fly, you took a boat. When you took a boat, she actually saw the Hindenburg fly over. So how about that for some fascinating historical connection? So he grew up in New York. He met my mom. My mom's from Wheeling, West Virginia, and also Ohio. So my mom's, kind of white American, and so they got together, fell in love, almost like a reverse West Side Story. I don't know West Side Story, like she was the white lady and he was the Puerto Rican guy, but it's exactly the flip of the movie. But they got together, and here's an interesting thing. It was I was born in 68. So in the early 70s, when they were raising me as a young kid, everybody, I don't know how to describe this, but it was about fitting in. It wasn't about celebrating your heritage and bringing it with you and stuff. My dad obviously spoke perfect Spanish. My mom was learning it because she was working in the Bronx. So you got to pick up Spanish as you do. But I don't know if I could go back and whisper in my parents' ear, speak to your kids in Spanish. So I grew up not hearing Spanish in the household. And so all of a sudden I don't know Spanish. And all of a sudden I'm like Puerto Rican. I go to my grandmother's house. I knew all the words for all the foods because I heard it in and I would have known more words if they had spoken to me. So it's kind of a weird thing that if I could go back, I would change that one thing about my life. So I tried to take as many Spanish classes as I could when I got to high school and college, but I'm still not fluent and I'm not perfect. And I've given talks in Peru and my Spanish isn't good enough to give a talk. I can still have a conversation over dinner in Puerto Rico, but not enough to give a talk. And I really wish that my Spanish was stronger. So I just thrown that out there, as sometimes mixed kids get a lot of Spanish, sometimes they don't. And I'm one of the mixed kids who doesn't get a lot of Spanish. So they split up. I moved to upstate New York, in Cooperstown. If you ever heard about the Baseball Hall of Fame, Cooperstown, I'm going to ask you, how do you get to Cooperstown? Do you know how to get to Cooperstown?
No.
Work on your hitting. So it's a joke. So anyway, upstate New York, they split up. My mom remarried. I went to high school in a really wonderful small town of Cooperstown. 99 white kids and me is essentially what it was. But I was the star math kid. I fell in love with math, and I was fortunate to kind of represent in terms of being one of the stronger math students. Got to MIT. Wow. Fell in love with computer science. I had tasted a little bit of computer science thanks to my high school teacher, Mr. White. I just got a shout out to him. He passed away some years ago of cancer, but he was amazing, and he was also my basketball coach. So he was like the two people. And I wasn't a star, but I was a player. I was like the 7th man on the team that went to the state Final Four. I just need to say, and was honored with being one of the best teams of the decade. So not me, because I never really played in the playoffs, but they were amazing. I just need to say that I played with some amazing athletes. So long story short, I really loved my high school experience, kind of a big kid in a small pond, both in basketball and in track. And I had the school record in the 200-meter dash. So I was kind of like a big fish in a small pond. Really, really enjoyed my time in high school, basketball and track and math. Those are the 3 things that I was just, totally really enjoying and doing well. got to MIT, and they were better than me in basketball and better than me in track. And I was learning computer science. A lot of other kids at college, I don't know if people can relate to this. When I got to college, there were many people who had many more years of computing than I had. I had like one semester, and everybody else owned a computer. I didn't own a computer. Like I grew up, not on the poverty line, but a little bit above that, but barely on the poverty line. My mother tells me when I was growing up that the family could eat meat once a week. I don't know, but that's a very seriously on the poverty line. And so she would put oatmeal in it. She'd cook oatmeal and put it and like mix it to stretch the meat all week. But it was basically, we could buy meat once a week. So I grew up very humble beginnings. So I got to MIT, fell in love with computer science. And I discovered, boy, these kids are a lot smarter than me because they had all these years of, maybe just more experience than me. But it could be some of both. Fell in love with computer science, fell in love with teaching. Not so much teaching, fell in love with computer graphics. And I said, I need to do more computer graphics. And I want to go to graduate school. I'd done pretty well. And so I wanted to go to graduate school. I remember attending this, I'll try to make this short, but I remember attending a session where they were talking about all the top schools of the country. And they listed the number of stars, which is how strong they were. Kind of like movie ratings, like, 4 stars is the best. And a couple of them, they listed 5 stars, which is like, whoa, you pulled a 5th star out. And they starred MIT as a 5th star. I was like, hey, that's where I am. And then they starred Berkeley as a 5th star. And that's all the only 2 stars they had in this closed room place where the professors were giving some advising. And I said, like, wow, these 2 places. I remember one of the 5 stars. Let me try the other one. So I literally just threw my hat into the ring of Berkeley, not having any idea. I'd never been to California, never known, threw my hat into the ring of that. I had visited once to San Francisco, or once or twice, and I'd gone to a Grateful Dead show. I fell in love with the Grateful Dead because I was learning rock and roll and music in the 60s and Woodstock. So I said, like, oh my gosh, I'm here at the Grateful Dead show in January 1st in California, and there's not 7 inches of snow on the ground. I had left Boston with 7 inches of snow on the ground, and I arrived in California, people are in shorts. I'm like, wait, why can't I be living like this in January? This is crazy. Why do you have to have snow? So I kind of been broke because I'd always had snow all my life. I'd never not had that. So I realized I could actually get out of there. So I applied to Berkeley, got in. I couldn't believe that, I had done really well enough in graphics. I got in. And when I was at Berkeley, I fell in love with teaching. So I was doing graphics. So I kept adding a layer. Like I liked math, then got to college and added computer science, got to graduate school and added graphics and teaching. And then I said, let me try to apply for a teaching position. And they give it to me. They must have hired the wrong guy. Must be another Dan Garcia going, where's my application? But anyway, I got hired as a teaching professor. And that just basically means that I'm like a normal professor. I don't like the word normal because I think of myself pretty normal, but like a regular research professor. But my promotion is based on my teaching and my curriculum development and kind of more teaching than research. So where they're like 60% research and 20% or 30% teaching, I'm like 60% teaching and 30% research. So I still do, scholarship, and I have grad students, and I have all of that. The other regular faculty too. I don't like the word regular, but mostly it's focusing on teaching, and I love it. And I've kind of worked my way up, as you mentioned, some of my accolades. I worked my way up. And I've been doing this. I've been at Berkeley for 35 years. I've been a professor for 25 years. So I've been at a lot of advisory boards, and I got honored with a couple of ACM awards. And I've just been really humbled by. And our course kind of blew up and went viral at some point because this Beauty and Joy computing course that I invented had, for the first time in UC Berkeley history, at a computer science course, had more women than men. And, we were mostly classes are like 20% women, 25, 15, but we got to 50. And that was like such a huge deal. And someone was interviewing me, and I was on stage giving a keynote at some conference, and I wasn't using Twitter or social media, but one of my former students was. And so I said, here's a funny story. So I said, this course that I was talking about the course on the stage. That was what the topic of the keynote was. I said, this Beauty and Joy of Computing course has more than 50% women in it. And the person tweeting it with only like 140 characters, they said, UC Berkeley computer science, more than 50% women, which means you think the whole department, the whole major was. No, I just meant one course was. But in the 140 characters, it was a mistake, maybe. I don't think it was intentional. And all of a sudden, I went to sleep, woke up, and my phone was ringing off the hook. They say if you ever go viral, your phone rings off the hook the next day because everybody's calling you and blah, blah. And all these reporters were calling me, telling me, hey, I heard that you're at UC Berkeley and you're now more than half women. This was at a time where we were talking about how do we expand it to more women in computer science. And so here's this guy doing this thing. And I kept trying to correct them. No, it wasn't the whole department, not the whole major. It's just one course. And they said, well, I've got you on the phone. Let's keep talking. And so essentially they already had found me and already had gotten ready to write something for their piece. And they said, you know what, I'll just change the piece and I'll correct it. but essentially I got a lot of press for that. So that was pretty exciting. And that's it. Then I discovered that I realized I wasn't, at some point I was realizing I was working so hard to take this course and give it to high school. This is, my whole life history. Right? I was trying to give this course to other high school teachers. So I ended up connecting about 2010 with a lot of the high school Computer Science Teachers Association space and taking the Beauty and Joy Computing and sharing it with wonderful teachers who I got to meet all around the country, actually all around the world. I went to South Korea and China and Greece. I mean, I could list Barcelona, and talked about my course and talked about how you could be part of our family. We gave the course away for free. I wasn't trying to hawk a book or something. I was just literally, it's on the website. You can just go to the course, BJC, Berkeley, EDU. The software's free, the curriculum's free. I wasn't trying to make money. I was just trying to share this thing that I had built with more people to be able to, inspire more young students and more beginning programmers. So we got some grants from the National Science Foundation. We got some money to teach more teachers. We got a couple of different grants. We became part of the CS10K effort, which was to teach 10,000 new teachers the new APCS Principles course. You just mentioned you got to connect with me through this APCS Principles course. I got invited to be on the development committee. So I was actually one of the 5 or 6 faculty, high school teachers and faculty to college faculty to build this course and to create the exam and do all of that. So what an honor to be in all these conversations and be building this, be part of this community of people all excited about how do we get computer science into more hands, into students who are normally underserved, rural kids, urban kids, kids who don't look like the majority kids who are typically getting this at rich.
I do have a question.
Go.
In light of the impact that you've had on broadening the experience, broadening the exposure of computer science to underrepresented groups, how was your personal journey? You went through some you are at an elite academic institution. You journeyed through some elite academic institutions. And as an underrepresented minority yourself, did that shape you in any way? How was that experience?
Well, let's be very honest. I am white passing. My mom's white, and I'm a little bit lighter skinned than my dad. My dad looks like a black person, like an Afro Latino. So he looks black. I happen to be white passing. I haven't had any racism directed at me that I knew about. Maybe there's, my last name's Garcia. I'm very proud of that. I often put a Puerto Rican flag on my office and my web page. It's all there. So I'm not like I hide who I am. I don't speak Spanish as much, so you don't hear a Spanish language. I actually feel like I'm more a New Yorker because I'm from New York and Puerto Rican. I'm a New Yorican, like como Jelo. So it's a little bit more of, I think there's some white privilege that I need to recognize that might have helped my path through that. I certainly was the only student of color out of 100 kids in high school. And I certainly had people call me racist names in 8th grade when I was going through that. But then by 9th grade, we were friends again. Like it was a phase for them. And so there's a little bit of me realizing that sometimes it's hard for kids if they go into a space and they're not feeling like they're comfortable. And I didn't necessarily feel that in high school, except when the kids were teasing me and calling me names in middle school.
Now, you said Mr. White inspired you. Did you have many other inspirations?
Well, my professor, Brian Barsky, and my mentors, Brian Harvey and Mike Clancy at Berkeley, those 3 faculty at Berkeley, and how fortunate, what a gift, what a life gift to have these 3 faculty who were so inspirational to me, to be able to be chosen to join the faculty and have them be colleagues and by the way, one of the things about Berkeley is that there's not a lot of turnover. Berkeley is one of the top ranked schools in the country. So we don't get people poached from us and stolen from us. And so once people join our faculty, they usually stay until they retire. So there were people that were my mentors, Professor Kathy Yellick, Professor David Patterson. They were my mentors when I was a grad student. I taught with them and when I was a young faculty member, and they're continuing to stay. So it's like, I see them every week for lunch. Like amazing to be able to not just have, in high school, you have the 4 years of your teacher and then you go away, you never see them again. But imagine if you stayed with them and can continue to tell them and work with them and realize how many other dimensions of amazingness they were around you. So what a gift and what a delight all of these folks were for me. But Mr. Howard and Mr. White, Mr. Howard just passed away and Mr. White just recently passed away. He was my track coach, and my basketball coach. So all the things athletically, I had these 2 amazing men, Mr. Howard, Mr. White, were there. And years later, I went back to visit and gave talks in their class, and we ended up playing golf together. I was like, oh, I'm playing with my mentors. And I have a photograph of all this together. So there's some amazing folks. And, if you're listening to this, go back and tell your high school or college teacher that they made a difference to you. I mean, there's got to be somebody who made a difference to everybody's life, maybe a mentor, maybe a big brother, whatever it was. Go tell them that. Like, that just gives them so much love and so much energy. Please go back and do that and pay it forward and give it back to the people, and do it for other kids too. That's a wonderful thing to do.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So you put a lot of heart and passion into developing this beauty and joy of computing. So, and this was the express purpose to try to broaden participation?
1,000%, 1,000%. We had a non-majors course called, and I'm trying to remember, Introduction to Symbolic Programming. I mean, who's going to take that? That's not exciting on the page. And by the way, a lot of reporters said, oh, all you did was change the name. You just whitewashed it. No, I didn't. We actually literally tore it down to the studs. When you talk a house and you remove all the the drywall and everything down to the core. We took the course that we had liked some parts of it, but we wanted to remove it. It was a text-based course. We made it blocks-based. It was in Scheme, which was great, very functional language. We kept it in Snap. At the time, it was called BYOB because we wanted to keep the functional. So we liked some parts of the class. We taught recursion, this very powerful computer science idea. We wanted to keep teaching recursion. We taught functions as data or higher order functions. We wanted to keep teaching that. So this course really, we kept the things we liked, but we jettisoned the stuff that wasn't working. We said, you know what? Let's not have students work alone. Let's have them all work in partners and in pair programming. We had learned from attending SIGSE, Special Interest Group Computer Science Education, what's on the ACM Special Interest Group. So I'd been attending this, hearing what people were doing in their courses and realizing, boy, if I ever redesigned a course, I should add that and add that and add that. And all of a sudden in 2008, I went to a conference. I was invited as one of the kind of faculty insiders to be part of the conversation. Should we create APCS principles? Imagine being on the ground as that conversation was happening, right? It was really pretty cool. So 2008, October 26, 2008, I flew back home and I called a meeting of everybody at Berkeley. I said, I see the future. The future is this new course called APCS Principles. Let's go back into the drawing board and let's take our non-majors class and make it the world's best. That was our goal. And so we sat together for a whole year. And I had a grad student named Colleen Lewis. She became an amazing professor of Harvey Mudd and now in Illinois. So I had some super all-star folks working with us, students, Brian Harvey and I together. We said, we literally erased the whiteboard and we said, what do we like about the old course? What do we want to have new? We got to have a blocks language. What could we choose? We looked at Alice. We looked at some different we looked at Scratch. We looked at other things that we came upon. Scratch was the best we liked, but Scratch, you couldn't build your own functions. But some programmer named Jens Monig had made a fork of Scratch called BYOB, Build Your Own Blocks. Turned out that if you call a programming language BYOB, some teachers and parents get upset, so you can't call it BYOB because they don't have a sense of humor. But anyway, they called it BYOB, Build Your Own Blocks. And it was like that was a version of Scratch that could have what we wanted, has the power of functions as data. And I want to give Brian Harvey a lot of credit. He worked with Jens together to create this amazing language called Snap. They rewrote it in JavaScript. We've been using Snap forever. So Snap is like the core of our whole curriculum. We build it around how amazing Snap is. And I know of very few curriculum around the whole world that have such a tight connection, like a yin-yang connection of a synergy, a synergistic relationship in which in which the curriculum and the language affect each other. So if they make a new feature in Snap, we'll maybe think about, hey, how can we use that in BJC? Or we'll say, we need this feature in BJC, and Snap will add that. So I know of no other language and curriculum that are as tightly coupled as BJC and Snap. And I think that's one of the benefits of BJC and certainly of Snap as well. So that's part of the background is we discovered I'm rambling a little bit, but you started, what was it like to be the only kid of color in these computer science classes and in those spaces? I realized that I needed to reach more students, that we at the national level were not getting computer science to kids who looked like me, but also who didn't look like me, but maybe in a rural location or maybe a young woman. Like, I don't certainly represent every identity. So how do we get it? I happen to get it for one semester. Some kids never got it. Some kids today are going through 12 years of high school and college, grade school and high school, and getting zero computer science. So that became the passion, the whole movement. The CS10K effort, the whole APCS principles movement was all about CS for all. I was so proud. I was in tears, literally in tears, when I watched my president President Barack Obama used the word computer science in a State of the Union address.
Wow.
Like we had waited, and people had been behind the scenes getting that set up and helping with the script because he's not a computer science guy, but they helped with the script to get that in the national account. He had a computer science for all office. Like, and guess what? The next president killed it. Like, so the whole point is sometimes these things are only dependent on whoever's in, the White House.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Vote, by the way. Please vote in November. It's maybe the most important election of your lifetime. Please vote in November.
Absolutely.
And think about who's going to support computer science and who's going to support education. That's really
absolutely, absolutely. Now, has the problem of underrepresentation persisted? What kind of impact do you think you've been able to make overall to try to increase inclusivity?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, at Berkeley, we increased the number of female students to 50% in our class regularly. So, and what's the nice thing about that is they become our teaching assistants. So they become our staff. And all of a sudden, you look at the people teaching the class, they look like you. They look like half of them. And then at some point, we actually took another sample and we had 65% women. Then we had 72% women. And we realized we need to do some male outreach. No, that's a joke. We didn't. But anyway, the point was we were like crushing it on the female side. On the underrepresented student side, we looked and we realized that we should at least do as well. This is channeling ECS, Exploring Computer Science, an amazing curriculum out of LA. One of the things that was the testament to them was that when they implemented in LA schools, they saw the population of kids matching the population of the school. So whatever fraction of Black and brown kids, that's what the population of kids were in their classes. That's really important. So at Berkeley, we're able to exactly meet or exceed the population of Black and brown kids in our class as well. So we're doing what? Like we're crushing with women, but we're kind of doing it just at campus level. I think I'd love to have doing better than that, but we're doing just campus level. So we're doing exactly what you want to have. You want to have it like any, if I sample and take a little scoop and sample any career, any class, it should look like the larger population. You sample the pilots. Pilots should be half women. Are they? No. They should be, 26% Hispanic, Latino. Are they? No. So the real, we got to keep moving on to nurses and the same, right? All those things. You want to be able to sample from whatever you're measuring and have it match the general population. Let's sample from the Supreme Court justices. They look like our country? No, they don't. So like, that kind of thing, right? So you asked, I think locally we've done very well. And as I look to our community of people teaching BJC in their high schools, they've done very, very well in terms of bringing in, and sometimes you have to put there's a secret, you put your finger on the scale sometimes, which is secretly, here's an example. Secretly, you tell the admissions folks that if you want to have 50-50 women, boys and girls in your class, right? What you can do is say, don't let anybody know I'm doing this, but you have, let's say you're allowed for 30 students in a classroom. You tell the people allowing you to sign up for the class that we're going to reserve 15 spots for boys and 15 for girls. Nobody knows that, but it's reserved for that. And guess what? The first year, it's 50-50. Like, oh, look, miraculously how it happened. Yeah, because you secretly did it. And then once it does the first year, the next year is just as good because you got 15 girls who are telling their friends and telling their friends. And next thing you know, next year, you don't have to do that anymore. So sometimes you can secretly kind of put your finger on the scale to kind of get the diversity you want. And you'll get that after, it'll propagate. You won't have to kind of affect the system artificially to do that.
It's fascinating you bring that up because politics does play a role. The Supreme Court overturned affirmative action. You know what I'm saying? So it just it impacts
and that's
your work.
That's a deeper conversation.
Yeah,
that's a deeper conversation. What Proposition 209 is a California proposition that killed affirmative action in the state of California. Okay. And we showed in California, and the moment that hit, the moment that judgment came down, they said, well, California's doing pretty well because they've had, this version of this anti-affirmative action policy, Proposition 209, says you can't, it almost reads from Dr. King. You can't prejudge anybody on basis of skin color or race in this. And so all the affirmative action things were kind of killed when they did this. But it reads exactly as you'd hope it would read. You can't prejudge on this for government jobs and for schools and for admissions. And so it kind of reads the way you'd want it to read. But the reaction was the moment that happened, the number of, Black students in law programs dropped by 10% of the number it was the year before. So that meant there was a little bit of affirmative action and they said you couldn't do it. And so what we've learned in California is, and this is what I'm saying, there might be a way that is more palatable to the folks who are anti-affirmative action, is look at a holistic application process where you look at what are the opportunities to a person, and you do this. And then you kind of look at that and you kind of weight different things. That's one. The second is you look at what leadership and other activities were done as a function of what was available to you. So if you're at a rich suburban school, you got a million after school things you could do. But if you're at a very underserved, urban school, there might be one after school thing. Maybe it's chess club or something, maybe none. So you're doing as well as you can in your space. And so it's a little bit, this affirmative action thing, super controversial, but it may end up that people are able to do what California did, which is still have a diverse community of students coming in. You're still doing pretty well. UC Berkeley is going to be a Hispanic serving institution. Like, we're doing amazing in terms of the number of Latino students, Hispanic students coming into Berkeley, even though we're still legal within Proposition 209. So it's still possible to raise the bar and bring in more numbers of students who are underrepresented within the anti-affirmative action laws that are around you. So I think it's possible to do that, especially, and one of the things that even the Supreme Court justices said, they said, what if you just look at economic? What if you were blind to race and ethnicity, but looked at economic issues? And it's about uplifting socioeconomic status kids. And so it's going to support poor Black and brown kids and poor white kids in Appalachia. Like, that may be something that is the right thing. So it's not a clean decision of that's the right or wrong. It might be that by doing that and removing race and ethnicity, you're going to see a hit on that. And it's a shame that we're not, able to push this. But it may be that we can all do what California did to actually get the numbers up in a way that's palatable to the whole country. And so kind of try to remove, we have so much division right and left, and conservative, progressive. What if we can get the numbers up like California have, but everybody's happy? So it might be that we actually do a California, pull a California, if you will, and then do something where if you look at only, if you look at only economics, it might mean that a rich, a wealthy kid of, I'll say, a Puerto Rican lawyer, like this kid is, grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth and like Beverly Hills. No, it was 90210. What was that? Beverly Hills?
Yeah, 90210.
What's the Will Smith? What's the Will Smith? I forget the.
Oh, Fresh Prince.
Fresh Prince, right? So imagine Will Smith as Fresh Prince. He's growing up in Beverly Hills, the richest kid, right? If you grow up rich, maybe you don't get that little extra thing. And by the way, P.S., let's kill the most important thing that you can do if you're going to do this anti-affirmative action thing, legacy admissions. Throw that out. You want to look at who legacy admissions are? It's who got in 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Those are not diverse group of folks. So kill legacy admissions. And if you looked at, so it might mean that, as I said, a rich Puerto Rican kid doesn't get a leg up because he's Puerto Rican anymore. Maybe that's the right thing. As I said, that's why it's not so clean. Maybe the fact that a rich Puerto Rican kid doesn't get in is the right thing based on being Puerto Rican. And a poor white kid who doesn't have the opportunities in Appalachia, he gets in. I think that's not the worst. So I think there's a little bit of way to think about this. It's not a black and white issue. For me, there are some black and white issues. Supporting of gay and trans students, black and white issue. There's a right answer and a wrong answer. The right answer is support them, let them marry, let them this, support them. There's the wrong side of history and the right side of history.
Sure.
But in terms of affirmative action, there is no clean thing. It might be that doing this where you remove race and ethnicity from the conversation, but look at economics, allows kids to do something. You might end up getting to a ton of poor Black and brown kids in the suburbs, in the inner cities. So you still might get the kids you want to bring into your schools, but have it in a way that's palatable by everybody. So anyway, that's my.
Well, that's great. I love the passion.
That's my passion. That it is. I'm not. What I'm saying. I wasn't so. When that came down, I'm like, well, now we're just like California. So and California's done very well, and California's palatable by everybody. So maybe that's one less thing that we're fighting about. I'd love to see our country be able to go back to the days where we could just have civil discussions about things, and people are so about this thing. So I'd love to be able to find a way that there's some compromise, and maybe the Prop 209, the Californification of doing admissions might be a way that everybody's kind of happy with it, and you still get the result of underserved kids get in. So that underserved kids might be white kids too. I'm just throwing that out there, and poor Chinese kids in New York City, they should get in too. So there's a little bit of like. Stop looking. Anyway, so
well, Professor Garcia,
go ahead.
Let me tell you, I applaud all your efforts because I've seen them. I applaud it. Now, let me tell you, how about efforts or initiatives like A's for All? Does that belong in the equation?
That does belong in the equation because I'll tell you this. I thought I was doing pretty well, right? I created this BJC course. I taught 1,000 teachers, and I would go around the country giving all these talks. Went to the White House twice. So I went to this conference and I realized that I was putting so much work into creating a really wonderful, inspiring course, working super hard to teach teachers what the course was, to create a wonderful language, Snap, that I didn't build myself, but we used it and we brought it in and we merged it to our curriculum. To send them through our training and to make sure that the right kid, and guess what? They then work super hard that whole year with these kids and they do so great. And guess what? At the end of the year, because of the kid got sick and had the flu for 2 weeks, the kid gets a C. You know what the kid says to themselves? And the kid might be, a young Dan Garcia. Kid gets a C. You know what the kid says to themselves? Guess computing isn't for me. Just pause. I guess computing isn't for me because that's a signal. I got a C. I guess I shouldn't do computer. That's crazy. No. And by the way, and then I looked at myself, look inward first, right? I always say look inward. And I was giving C's and D's and F's to kids, boys and girls and white and kids and Asian kids and black and brown kids. That's crazy. Why am I giving C's and D's and F's? Why couldn't this all hit kind of around COVID time? People said, let's give them all incompletes. So if they don't pass the class, we give an incomplete, let them work afterwards. And it hit me. Why couldn't, rather than just give a failing kid an incomplete and let them pass it, why couldn't I let a B kid get an incomplete and keep working to get an A? Why couldn't I let them say, you know what, if you want to master this material and you want to achieve, this is Benjamin Bloom, 1968 paper about mastery learning, couldn't I provide structure to allow, and by the way, the fortunate thing at Berkeley is only I was teaching BJC every semester, BJC every semester. So if I ever gave a kid an incomplete, it means as a kid now is going to be given to the next instructor to handle the incomplete and resolve it, and it's me. So I'm giving myself more work. So if I'm willing to do that work, why shouldn't I be able to take a kid and say, do you want to work past the semester on this material? Maybe it's against an autograder where none of my staff have to do any work. The kid's just trying to get the code to work against the autograder. It's a computer. The computer can take 1 million submissions. They don't care how many autograder submissions there are. So why couldn't I let the kid continue to work a day after the semester, a week, a month, a semester, like that next summer? Why couldn't they keep working and hammering on it until they finally get it? Why couldn't that happen? And so it hit me that I didn't need to, that the grading policies that I was imposing were ones that I would handed to me when someone handed the course. They say, here's the course, here's the syllabus, here's the grading policies. I changed the syllabus, but never thought I could change the grading policies. So I realized I was teaching wrong. So this is, I went to another podcast. I said, I've been doing it wrong for 20 years, which is I didn't think about bringing empathy into it, bringing the idea that kids could work beyond the semester. Why not even give the kids, so once you're letting them work beyond the semester, what could you do inside the course? Could you give them multiple exams? A lot of times, you probably know this, in high school, you submit an essay and the English teacher marks it up with red pen and says, rewrite it. And if you rewrite it, I'll regrade it. And so you fix all the errors, you learn about what you did wrong, it's that versus which, or whatever you're doing incorrectly, you resubmit it, they give you the grade, and that's your final grade. Like, why couldn't, if it's been done in high school, it's been the kind of A's for all, the mastery learning has been something that people have been doing in high school for years and years and years. It's not done in higher ed. Why? Because our scale is 10 times your scale. You teach 30 kids, I teach 300 kids. Mm-hmm. I taught 1,000 kids. My scale is 30 times what your scale is. So could it be done in scale? Well, maybe if you had software to help, ta-da, I write software. So I can have my students work with me and build some software to facilitate and to allow technology and automation to facilitate some of these processes. So long story short, I realized I should do this myself. So I used my own course, BJC, which is actually happily off the radar. It's not a course for majors. So I'm kind of on my side. I can do all these creative things and nobody really looks at me and cares. And I'm trying to do this innovation. It's a space for innovation. So I added a feature where you can work beyond the semester. I added a feature where I give multiple exams because my exams became auto-graded. I discovered this piece of software called Prairie Learn where I could put an exam in and put the answers in too. And the exam could even have randomness and the answers know about the randomness. So it's like, Khan Academy where it says, what is 2? And 2 is like in one color plus 3 and 3 is in another color. So 2 and 3 are random variables that are being chosen by the software. And if I refresh the page, it'll say what's 4 plus 6. It'll be a different number. So why couldn't I do the same thing, add randomness, put these questions online in Prairie Learn and pre-program the answers? Well, if I have that, why couldn't I then give them a second exam? I'm not grading it. To launch it, literally I copy a set of emails. My TA does this, copy a set of emails, paste it into a file, say save, and the exam's ready. That's how much work I had to do to add another exam. I'm not grading. I'm very different than a high school experience where you're grading another set of papers. I'm not doing any more work other than copying and pasting, saying exam 2 is now open next weekend. So all of these things I'm doing in the class, I'm letting them work beyond the semester, having multiple exams, and the deadline for projects. If the person grading your project is a computer, why does it have to be a deadline? So I let them have flexible deadlines. I made the mistake of saying to one semester, fall 22, I said, no deadlines. And nobody did any work. They're like, no deadlines. I'll work in December. Like, no, that's really bad. That's bad for your learning too. So I said, well, now there's a deadline, but if you need an extension, I'm going to basically grant it to you. So basically you have to reach out to get, so it's a little more friction rather than saying no deadlines. There is a deadline. If you need any more time, I'm here for you. We're going to talk to you and we'll support you. This is called flexible extensions. And so Armando Fox, my colleague at Berkeley, and some other folks, we applied for a grant to support this and try to build some software around this. And it's called A's for All. We published a paper. And so I'm one of the loudest advocates on campus. And I think, nationally, at least in computer science, to talk about rethinking grading, rethinking this in the A's for All, which kind of I coined. Well, I didn't coin it. I got it from another paper, but I'm the guy taking A's for All from this paper and kind of saying, A's for all in computer science, where a student, if they want an A, can get. I'm not forcing an A on you. I'm saying if you want to get an A, I'm going to be here for you to support you in all the ways that you need it to hit mastery. So that's the A's for All initiative.
Sounds like education with a heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when I talk to people who don't want to do any of my things. I said, how about not grading on a curve? So you don't have to be competitive, you're collaborative. How about giving the students some flexibility if they get sick? Nope, sorry, the syllabus says no late. So I've gone in, I'm now part of some of the, I have some visibility on campus. I'm part of some of the study committees, undergraduate and college study committees, undergrad study committees. And so when a curriculum comes by my desk that says, we're making a new course and the course has no late work accepted, I say, sorry. I kick it back and say, sorry, that's not equitable. That's not supporting a student who might have life get in the way or might have something here or might have a long commute or something. There's something that happened to that student. They need a little bit of support. How about a little love? How about a little empathy? And if the curriculum says none, I'm kicking it back and saying, sorry, I'm not going to take it. Rethink this. And by the way, campus leadership has heard it. And so now campus folks are saying the same thing. How about flexible deadlines for the whole campus? Like, Armando's done such a great job to kind of get that into the words of some of our leaders. And so Oliver O'Reilly, who's a vice chair of undergraduate education, vice provost on campus, is now saying that out of his mouth. Flexible extensions, like the thing that we want him to say, he's saying. Kind of like Obama said, computer science is important. Somebody's behind them actually writing the script. Yeah. Not like Oliver is a puppet, but my point is we got the word to Oliver and he believes it's like, this is important. And so he's echoing this. So it's really delightful that people at our leadership on campus are saying, let's be flexible. Let's be sympathetic. Let's be empathetic within reason, obviously, but let's see if we can support students when they need it. So it's super, super important.
Well, no doubt you're having an impact. I heard your name all the way over here in Texas attending a computer science thing. So no doubt you're having an impact. Here's what I would like. I would like for you, considering your experience, your work, everything, could you give some advice to any of the youth that may come across this interview?
Yeah, sure. Well, I give kind of a graduation speech in my classes, so I'm going to tap into some of that, which is, so advice for students is, you got to lean in. So I have a five letter kind of piece of advice. This is how I remember it all. So L stands for lean in, which means you can't wait for opportunities to come to you. You have to take advantage of that. So, and by the way, some people say they hate the lean in movement because it means it's all on the students and the women. Lean in is all about, Sheryl Sandberg said women need to take more initiative, but that it's almost like what's the analogy? It's like letting the system get off the hook. No, let's fix the system. The system is broken to make women have to do that. You shouldn't have to lean in just to be accepted to have to do these things. So that's right. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's true too. We should change the system so you don't have to lean in. But given that the system is still broken, taking advantage, taking initiative, emailing your teachers, reaching out to people. I want to go volunteer. Nobody's going to call you and say, can you be a candy stripe at a local hospital? You have to go take that initiative. So go lean into those opportunities in high school and college. Go meet your professor. Go meet your professor in office hours and make sure they know your name the first week. That's a really powerful thing. And a lot of people, I'm too scared. I'm not going to go. No, lean in, go meet them, sit in the front row. Don't sit in the back. That's all part of the same picture. Sit in the front row. Don't be scared. I was scared my first 2 years of college. I literally said oh, they're smarter than me. I sat in the back. Don't call on me. No, make sure you do your homework and do your work and sit in the front and then raise your hand for everything. It's something different. By the time I kind of woke up to that, I became literally a back row kid to a front row kid. My last 2 years of college, I was in the front row of every single class, raising my hand, saying sorry, and I'd stop the whole class and say, sorry, I didn't get that. Can you say it again? And then they say, no problem. And they would go back. If they're nice, they go back again. It changed the way I had my education. I kind of owned my education. So lean in all these ways I'm saying to take initiative and sit in the front row and go meet your teachers and make sure they know your name. So lean in.
Awesome.
So A stands for academic soulmate. So that means find somebody that you work really well with to study and have a study partner. And this in college where you can go back to your dorm and work on a problem set, but in high school it's a little harder. But find time where you go to the library together and study together. Don't do it alone. Learning is a social activity, and find an academic soul. Might be a couple group, maybe a group of 5 of you that really love working together and you support each other. And maybe one of you gets this idea and not the others. The other one gets this idea, and you can teach each other. If one person gets it, the other person doesn't. Or if all 5 don't, we say like, boy, they might not have done a good job explaining it because none of us understand it. So at least you have somebody to talk to and bounce ideas off of. So academic soulmate. So A, lean in. B, academic soulmate. C, have an underground project. It's you. Have an underground project, which is think about something that you are passionate about. And maybe it came from class, maybe it comes in, and then work on it. Do something, when you're waiting in the line for the DMV or the supermarket, don't be on your phone scrolling and doom scrolling. Be thinking about your project. Be thinking about maybe it's a piece of wood, maybe it's a piece of pottery or clay, whatever you're doing, whatever you're passionate about, have an underground project you're passionate about and keep building on it. For me, it was software. I wanted to build a tic-tac-toe player, and I kept adding games and games and games. And for 35 years, I have been working on that piece of software. I'll say it again, 35 years, the same piece of software. It's like my baby. It's called Gamesman, and I've been building it into a whole research group and master's students, but it started with my underground project of falling in love with tic-tac-toe and board games and wanting to solve them and understand how to play them perfectly. Wow. That's you. G is give back. At every level, you're going to be older than somebody behind you. So give back in every way you can. Maybe that means when you get to have a job, you write a check to support a volunteer organization. Maybe it means you're volunteering. Maybe it means you're teaching. Teaching is a way to give back. Here I'm talking to a dedicated teacher. Maybe it's like teach the next generation. Give back might be telling your teachers that they were important to you. So give back in all the ways that whatever level of privilege or ability you have, you can give back to a level that's less than you. So give back in as many ways as you can. Sometimes there's no money exchange. Just give back and tell them they're important, or teach them, or volunteer your time or effort. And the last one is have fun. Don't forget to take the blinders off and look around the room. If you get to Berkeley, go around San Francisco. If you're at your high school, make sure you take road trips and go do that. Don't just go through your 4 years of high school and college and just focus on school. That's the last thing I would say. Have fun. Realize there's a lot more to life around that. And sometimes you'll discover a passion outside that can pull into it. So as an example, I was a high school camp counselor, and I fell in love with this high school camp counselor. I was there. I grew up Quaker, which is a religion. And so I grew up as a Quaker counselor for some of the things. And I learned how to do games and puzzles and all these things. That ended up helping me. Here I am running a welcome new TA meeting. And I started doing the games I did for my camp counselor days. And this is the greatest thing ever. I'm like, wait, that thing I did for fun ended up paying some dividends right now as we were having all these games and ice-breaking activities, right? That I was doing when I was a kid. And as a camp counselor, I was doing it here. So sometimes you never know what it's going to pay dividends later in your life. So in summary, lean in, academic soulmate, have an underground project, give back, and have fun. Don't forget to laugh. Laugh. That's the way to remember those. So that's my
That's
my
some great advice. Great advice, Professor Garcia. Great advice. Great advice.
Sure.
So, what does the future? You're still a young man. What does the future have in store for you?
Well, I mean, you're very sweet. I am 10 years from retirement, so I'm not that young. I've been working for 25 years, and I'm probably going to work for 10 or 15 more. I'd like to, so as I said, I've been at Berkeley 35 years. I'd love to be at Berkeley 50 years. That would be really, really cool. So I'm thinking if I can work for 15 more years, I'm good. So in the next 15 years, I'd say the next 5 or 10 is all going to be in this A's for all. I really think that we've started to move the needle a little bit with software and support, technology support to kind of do this. I think that that idea that learners might need more time, it's helpful for neurodivergent folks, people who don't have the background. It's really important for non-majors classes where you came in, you didn't have any computer science before, and now you came in and now you're with people around you who have done a ton of that before. Like I was, if I had had more time to do the assignments, I might have, done better in my early first year because I was competing against all these kids who were, had more experience than me. So I think the A's for All initiative is a kind of simple kind of catchphrase we use. The mastery learning, we call it grading for equity, because A's. One student said, "Don't call it A's for All because I only want a B, and I have a C, but I don't want an A. So if I don't want an A, you're making me feel guilty that it's A's for All because I'm not going to get an A. I'm going to get a B and be happy with it. So it really A's for All is the right thing. Letting kids get the grades they want if they're willing to put the time and effort into them. But that doesn't have a pithy. So I think the A's for All initiative is something I'm going to be working on for at least the next 10 years. Right. It's part of the CS for All conversation. I've already given the community a curriculum, and now I'm giving them a grading template that, now I'm telling all of our BJC teachers, hey, do this more equitable grading and stop giving F's and C's and D's if you can in your situation. A lot of times high school teachers can't. They can't let people work past the semester. The grades are due. Colleges need them. It's a little bit more constrained, but at colleges, there's a little bit more flexibility to be able to work next semester because they're still around. So I think my A's for All is my next big thing. And then probably the last 5 years, if you actually literally ask me for a 15-year roadmap, A's for All in 5 years. In the last 5 years is going to be make sure that as I'm looking toward retirement and, more time with the family and more time on the golf course, is to hand off things. So I'm not needing to be in the loop. Like I make sure I train the next generation to be the A's for All leader or the BJC. It's like basically train your next generation, train your junior X, Y, or Z role so that when you leave and there's no more senior, they can move into the senior role and take over. So it's really more making sure everything I need to say in terms of Berkeley stuff, of what I have 35 years of how our department works. How do I share that with other people by being, by working with younger people? So really it's a lot of mentoring that I'm going to be doing, that I continue to do, but also going to be doing as I kind of go right off in the sunset so that I'll know that when I turn my back and go offline, let's say, imagine going, when you go for a vacation, it's rare to not bring your computer with you because you're always online. But every once in a while you do go offline and you hope that people you set up to cover it know how to cover it well. Imagine if I retire, no more internet connection. Maybe that means if I can do my job well, that last 5 years, everything's going to be fine. And I'll be able to not look back and think, I better get online again. I want it all to be kind of a good, I want to, make my bed in some sense. So if I leave, the house is ready for the next group of people to rent my intellectual house. So that's it. Help as many people, graduate people as I can. I've got 25 master's students I've gone through. If I get to 50, that'd be great. So I want 50 years of Berkeley, 50 master's students. I'll be really, I have no PhDs, but 50 master's students would be really great to be able to have that next generation of folks going on to great things.
Great stuff. Great stuff. You have such a unique journey, such an interesting perspective you've accomplished so many things. So I really appreciate you providing this perspective and sharing your story. Any final words or parting thoughts before we conclude this interview?
Sure. Well, first of all, don't let anybody tell you can't do it. That's super important. Shoot for the stars. Always shoot past the stars. I play golf and I coach golf to friends who are with me and all those things. And the lesson is always putt past the hole. Like here's the ball, here's the hole. Unless you put enough energy to go past the hole, like always shoot for reach schools. When you're applying to things, go to reach schools. Because if you never applied to the schools that are reach, you might have gotten in, but you wouldn't know because you're not going to apply to them. So always kind of putt past the hole. Always go for reach schools. Always shoot for opportunities that look like you're underqualified because you never know when you happen to be exact match for what they're looking for. So don't get afraid. That's kind of the lean in. That's a little bit back on the lean in thing. Always kind of put the extra effort to go for the reach and go for that. So, and try to remove people who are haters from your space, from being in the people get in your head. And like, look at who's around you, who's your safety net, and make sure that people who are going to be wind behind your sails, rather than people saying you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Have people who think of the positive side to that as well. When people get married, this is like, if you ask me for the big thing, people get married, don't have men give their name to women. That's a thing. This is my little pet peeve thing. I think it's too much patriarchy. I think that the right thing to do, from a computer science, from an exactly fair thing to do, is that men and women, when they get married, or men and men, or women, whatever, don't take each other's names, okay? And when you have a kid kind of randomly go between the names of your kids. So the kids have some fraction of the one parent, one spouse, one from the other spouse. So it's kind of a balanced thing. And so that allows let's get rid of that patriarchal name.
Flip a coin.
Flip a coin for the kids, but don't change names there. And then flip a coin for the kids or this. My wife and I did that where each because we had my wife and I here, so 2 different genders. So we said the kid. Here's how we did this: the kid of the same gender gets your last name, but the middle name of the other parent. So my last name is the last name of my son, but the middle name of my daughter. My wife's last name is my daughter's last name, my middle name of my son. So like both names. Anyway, that's kind of a side thing. I always wanted to tell that, and that's the only one that scales. If you create a new name, it doesn't really messes with genealogy. And if you keep concatenating the names, they get to be too long. They sound like a law firm. Hernandez, Garcia, Smith, and Wesson. It's too long. So that's 2. Take the haters away. Keep the folks who are going to support you. Do the name thing. See if you can have an impact. It's really easy. I think as just one last thing, just me kind of as a parent, pulling some parent advice. It's really easy to just do things that improve yourself. It means we watch movies and read books, and don't do things that have an impact on others. There's a don't just eat soma. There's a book that says you just live happily eating your soma. Don't eat your soma. Just think about how you can have an impact and make a difference in the world. And where, like people always say, you write some software. What are the pain points? What are the things that are really annoying that your software is going to try to resolve? Look at the world and what are the pain points of the world? Maybe the pain points are we're heating up the oceans. Maybe the pain points are the people who can't afford to do X, Y, or Z. Maybe the pain points are people who are not getting computer science who live in the cities and live in the countries. Then see what impact you can have to fix the world's pain points. And the last one I give you is borders. Actually, if you have a view of the Earth from the moon, you realize we're one family. And I think the fact that we have so much differences and so much squabbles of this and of the right versus left, this border versus that country, this border, you go back, if you have there's a view of the Earth from the moon that puts it all together. We're just one family. We're one Earth family. And so think about being more civil to each other, listening more, not prejudging if someone comes from the right or the left politically. Don't just think they're an idiot or they're crazy. They came to that position for a reason. So in this, so fractioned political climate, try to listen to each other, try to embrace your fellow person, and realize we're all one country and we're all one. There's so much horror in the wars that are happening that peace is the way, and think about us as one family. So, religion is the reason we're really we're one family. What do you do? So think about it. We're all one family.
I love that perspective. I'm going to use it. We're all one from the moon's perspective. I'll say I love it. We're going to use it. Hey, in that vein also, Professor Garcia, I can't thank you enough. And, I'm in Houston. If you're ever in these neck of the woods, man, ring me up. Let's go have some good Mexican food. There's some great food, barbecue, whatever you want. And, hey, I'm in Houston. You ever in these part of the woods, look me up, man. It'd be my pleasure to treat you.
Right back at you. If you're ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, I'd love to take you out. Got a great place down the road. We always take my friends who visit. So same thing. Right back at you, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Dr. Garcia, and best of luck.
All right. Take care, folks. Thanks so much.
Wow, what a fascinating perspective shared by Dr. Dan Garcia, a teaching professor at the University of California at Berkeley. Such a fascinating perspective. I want to extend thank you very much, Dr. Garcia. Thank you very much. Let me take a quick moment and ask that if you enjoy this content, that you please hit the subscription button and the notification bell, that you make a comment below, and that you smash that like button. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Please help me spread this joy and beauty to as many people as possible. I got plenty of wonderful things in store for this channel, and I truly appreciate your support. My name is Saud Gabdou, and this is Texas Math Mundo. Farewell. Farewell.